doesn't take days or weeks to read and digest. This is a culmination of 35 years in the construction industry, and I have worked for some of the giants: Gilbert, Zachary, Balfour, Hensel Phelps, just to name a few. These are multi-billion-dollar companies. I'll also throw Keywood in there. These were giants, but just because they were giants doesn't mean that their management techniques were always up to par. I was on plenty of jobs where changes had to be made, where employees weren't treated properly. A good example, we were doing a job out at DFW. I got a call from my superintendent that things had gone south. I didn't understand why, because up until then we had had a great interaction with Gilbert's crew and our people. We worked hand in hand. Come to find out, their bosses came out and chewed out their paving foreman because they couldn't keep up with us. When I found that out, I called up the project manager I was dealing with and said, "Did you really do this?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "You can't do that. Your guys work behind a paving machine. My guys do handwork every day. Your guys aren't physically capable of doing it." And that's a horrible comparison. Horrible. And I am headed to the job site, and I suggest you do too. And we got to get this resolved immediately, or this working relationship that we have worked so hard on is about to collapse. We went to the job site. I got with their superintendent. I explained to him what I had done, and he kind of looked at me like, "Really?" And I said, "Hey, this was wrong. I apologize. I can't control your people, but this was done because they didn't understand the situation, because they weren't out there. They were comparing apples to oranges. I saw this time and time again. But the issue just did not linger. It wasn't set off to the side that, well, cooler heads will prevail. No, this had to be addressed immediately, and it was. And I'm happy to say from that point on, that working relationship we have strived for returned. But it was all unnecessary. It should have never happened. But upper management was out of touch with what was going on in the field. I've seen the same thing in factories. I work for DuPont. But I will say this much about DuPont. Everybody knew their job. Everybody did their job. Everybody showed up on time. And I can't remember much complaining at all. It was only a summer job, but I was very impressed with how this company was run. It was great. Everybody knew their damn job and they did it. If there was complaining, I never heard it from my supervisor or his supervisor. Everybody just did their job, but they were also compensated for it. And we didn't have meetings that whole summer. I didn't attend a meeting one. We knew our quotas, we knew what we're supposed to do, and we did it. It was very simple. And that's what my book, Cutting to the Chase, is all about. It makes management simple, and that's what it's supposed to be. Now, when it comes to meetings, and we have all been in them. Well, I looked this up. About said meetings are unproductive and inefficient. 64 said meetings, they come at the expense of deep thinking. Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. And 62% said meetings miss opportunities to bring the team closer together. You know, the first three I am on board with, completing their work. And the second one, unproductive and inefficient. Well, it's time for that to change. And, you know, that third one about deep thinking, well, some people do good just to have a thought, much less a deep one. But the point is all these percentages are below 50%, which means nobody thought that the meetings they were attending to were being productive. And I have been in many of those through the years. And many of them were unproductive. They were a waste of time. I remember this partnering meeting in the city of Dallas where this was all the rage, and we all had to meet together with the city, and this consultant was brought in, and we are going to form this new company. What a crock. We were personality test. And the gal conducting this, I came out as a Class A personality. A shocking, I know. But when she read through all the things that type A's don't like to do, when she hit the word reading, I said, that's enough. I've sat here for 3.5 hours. I've held my tongue, and now I'm done with this. And I told her so much in so many words. I said, here we are, 3.5 hours into this. And what have we accomplished? Really not a damn thing. I've got 2 questions. Am I going to be paid on time? And are my questions going to be answered in a reasonable amount of time? And she looked at the city, and you know what they said? No and no. I said, then what's the point of this? I'm done. And I'm the one paying for this shit. So I'm leaving. And my project manager, Vicky, and I stood up and we walked out. That was it. I was done. It was an inefficient meeting. I sat in one where we had hit a power line. We had a fiber line, the company I worked for. We sat there for an hour, and all they talked about was more reports and more reports and more communication. And you get the problem here for. I said, fine. We have been here for an hour, and we have not discussed the problem. The problem is who's going to locate utilities on the job. I brought this up 2 months ago. I brought it up a month ago. And here we are, we hit a fiber line. So that is not our fault. And until all the lines are located, the gas, the power, the fiber, the water, the sewer, storm, we shouldn't move another yard of dirt. And all of a sudden, it got everyone's attention. And the utilities were finally located. And that was handled in 5 minutes. That would have been a productive meeting. And that's what I bring to the table. And that's what's in this book, Cutting to the Chase, how to conduct a meeting. And when somebody slots an hour aside, doesn't mean you have to use the whole hour. If you can get this done in 10 minutes, then you get it done in 10 minutes and you send everybody back to work. And then the companies that have meetings each day, especially production meetings, if you're hitting your goals, let your people work. Stop wasting their time, because in today's market and outrageous inflation, you must be as efficient as is humanly possible, or you will fall by the wayside, because every one of your clients and customers is going to be looking for the best deal, trying to keep their costs under control. And if you aren't interested in that, then you will become a casualty of the 2020 pandemic. And I don't think many of you want to fall in that category. I sure don't. But I wanted to give an introduction. I get to the point. I talk about meetings, how to deal with good employees, bad employees. And one of the biggest things about good employees is compensation. And I've heard this complaint through the years. I know with one of the companies I worked for, man, these guys really worked. But nobody wanted to turn in raises for them. Then I showed up. And if I saw a person excelling at their job and I saw what they made an hour, especially if they were a foreman, it's like, well, you're underpaid. I didn't have a problem turning in a raise. They said the office won't approve it. And I said, well, they sure won't approve it unless I turn it in. And then they would call and say, well, why are you doing this? And I knew the game, so I would turn in $1 an hour raise, and they, on the average, get 50 cents. Well, that made them happy. But I took care of my people. And in today's market, you better take care of your people. Now, does that mean having to honor this $15 an hour minimum? Only if they're worth it. If you don't have to pay it, don't pay it. Because I know in my business of construction, an entry-level person, which was required by federal law, the Davis-Bacon Act, was $8 an hour. That was the minimum they were paid. And then they worked up from there. I am not one to overpay someone and then find out they are incompetent and that they're overpaid. I'll start them at the minimum unless they have one hell of a resume. But they're still going to have to prove that you're worth that money. But yeah, we go over meetings, accountability, bad advice, confrontation, and respect. I'm not a fan of the word team. I've never been. The last team I was on was a baseball team. Church social, I really like that. This is where all the employees are at the water cooler, or in my case, in the yard, gossiping. You put a stop to that shit as quick as possible. Bad bosses. Let's have a beer. Let's not and say we did. I have seen this time and time again where people start thinking that's favoritism because you went out and had a beer with the boss. Don't do it unless it's the whole crew. Not the team, but in my case, the crew. I've already talked about praise. And it's one thing to enjoy what you do because I loved what I did. But I was living to work. I got in a relationship that taught me you work to live. There's nothing wrong with being all in. But if that's all you've got, then you're missing out on a lot of other things. Work is how we survive. Work is how we pay our bills. But it's not all encompassing. It won't fill every void that you have, because many people I know that lived to work really weren't that happy because they didn't take time out to go fishing, go bowling, go visit their kids, hang out with their grandkids, go to the water park, go to a movie, go to an outdoor concert. They didn't enjoy their money. That's a bad trap to fall into. And I was in it, but the relationship I got into changed all of that. I went from working 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that's really not an exaggeration, to 4 to 5 days a week, 14-hour days, and it was amazing. I was getting my work done, and I cut my hours by 30%. And I was actually living life and enjoying it. So if this message intrigues you, get your attention, you can contact me at jdawson41, the number, at netzero.net, or my phone number is 817-938-8461, and we will set up a time I can come over and talk with you. I'm here to help you become more productive, more efficient, and better managed. And that is what is really critical in today's post-pandemic world. Thank you for the time. This is Jeff Dawson signing off. Now, one other thing, if you enjoy politics and sports, I have a radio broadcast on BBS Radio 1, Dawson's Domain, and I will be live this Saturday at 2 o'clock. Y'all have a great week, and I look forward to talking to you in the future. This is Jeff Dawson in Dallas, and I'm out.